Recording in progress. All right, so first half of lecture, we went over the process for making glass. Looks a little convoluted and long, but just go step by step, find reference, assign your material, turn the base weight off. Your specular weight and color stay at the default. Piece of cake. You can adjust the roughness at this point, but I prefer to adjust it once I get everything done, because then I can adjust the roughness and the transmission in one shot. Adjust the index of refraction if needed. The default that you get in the specular section is 1.5 for glass. When you're making wine or any kind of liquid, then you need to change it. The transmission section is where the Maya utilities go. So transmission weight is where we plug in the gamma correct. We attach the out value X to the transmission. And then we adjust the gamma in X to 4. We set the Y and Z both to 0. And then in the value of the gamma, we plug in the sampler info node. That allows anything that is directly facing the camera to be transparent, anything on the edges to be a little bit darker or a little less transparent, exactly like the way glass behaves. Right. For that, we plug in the facing ratio, which is basically, how is the camera facing the object? And we select the value X to plug the facing ratio into in our gamma correct, because everything we've used is in that X value. We close it, adjust the transmission color based on your reference. White is clear. We turn caustics on under advanced in the material. We increase the indirect specular to 1.1 to get a little more brightness in there. And pretty much we're done, except maybe going into the Arnold renderer section. Go down sampling, the sampling tab in Arnold. We go down to the ray depth, and then we increase the specular and transmission as needed. Right, so we did, we did the wine, we did the glass, let's do the bottle. So I'm going to crank up Maya. Yep, no problem, Will. Take a screenshot so I can make sure I get you for attendance. There we go. RenderMan loaded, Arnold loaded. Yay, life is good. All right. Let's go back to the Zen garden. All right, so this is where we last left our hero scene. We've got clear glass, we've got red wine. Now we need to make the bottle a color. All right, now before we do that, let's go over the requirements for the refraction part of Project 6, just to make sure we're all on the same page. All right, so we went over the reflection portion, right? You have to make sure that you assign a material to all elements that are visible in the camera when you render, and also what might be visible in reflections. So for the refraction portion, we've got interior requirements here. And we've got exterior. Right now we're doing exterior, so let's look at them. So we have the wine glass, the wine geometry inside the glass, the wine bottle. The wine bottle is empty. So again, assign an AI standard surface to each, which we did. We're going to place the label geometry on the outside of the wine bottle on a display layer and turn off the geometry. So that is right here. So if you go into the outliner, you can see the wine, cheese, bread group, wine bottle group. You can see there's the wine label geometry. So we got a bottle, we got a cork, there's the geometry. I'm going to take that, throw it onto a display layer. This way I can have a separate layer for the label because I do not need my label to be visible. Not for project 6. That's only going to get in the way of me being able to see the glass that I made for the bottle. So put it on a display layer, turn visibility off for the label geometry only. So now if I re-render this, you can see my label geometry disappeared, which is good. And for this, I'm just going to crop so I can just have a smaller area to work with. There we go. All right, so back to our show. So the wine glass, clear. The wine bottle needs to be a color, and the wine in the glass needs to be a color liquid based on your reference. White wine, red wine, doesn't matter, your choice. Find reference images for everything. So that's the exterior. When we get to the interior, we'll kind of go over everything here. So first step, let's go back to the slides. Find reference. Let's go find some wine bottle reference. And to be precise, let's do empty wine bottle. Oh, there we go. Sure, thank you. Don't forget tools, size, large. Okay, avoid anything that's got candles in it or it's been turned into a light. Stuff like this works perfectly good. In fact, it's the same thing. One's got caps, one doesn't. I'll use this one. Save image. Let's see if we can get that. Empty bottles on a table. Sounds good to me. There we go. So now I got a choice. Forget clear. The wine bottle needs to be a color. So we got to, have a couple of olive colored looking bottles, some green, and we've got an amber back there. Not technically a wine bottle, but we got reference for it. So that dark amber might work. So now we have to decide what makes more sense. Well, generally, red wine is usually in some kind of darkened bottle. Most of the time, it's dark green, could be the olive colored, could even be amber. So we have to decide which one do we want to use. We got our reference. Let's assign our new AI standard. Yep, still got the base material. Arnold shader, AI standard, wine bottle. What color should we make our wine bottle? Yeah, we don't have blue reference. Don't want to do that. Got to stick with the reference. If you want blue wine bottle, you got to find a blue wine bottle reference. If you are using, or if you're making red wine, you got to make sure there is a blue bottle for red wine, because it doesn't make sense to have a label that says red wine when it's blue, and usually blue bottles are associated with white wine for whatever reason. So you got to make sure that the bottle color matches the label, matches the wine color. Because that would be crazy marketing. Here, buy our wine. You don't know what you're going to get inside. All right, so we got kind of this olive color. We've got this green color, and we've got the amber back there. So Michael says yellow. I'm assuming that's this kind of olive color yellow. Yeah, all right, let's go for that one. So we could even name it to be that color. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it just called wine bottle. All right, let's go to our checklist here. So we did that, we did that. Let's turn off the base weight. And let's render. There we go. Perfectly good black hole. All right. Nice shiny black hole. All right. Spec weight 1, spec weight or spec color white, default check. Roughness, I'm going to lower that down to 0.01 for now. Based on my reference, that may change. Well, that doesn't look too rough. It looks pretty clear. I don't know. Maybe I make it 0.02, so it's a little rougher than the actual wine glass. Okay, so index of refraction, 1.5, check. So now we go down to transmission weight. Let's go take care of all of our stuff. So if we turn up transmission weight all the way, we get no shadow. So we know we have to use that sampler info node with the gamma correct. Actually, gamma correct with the sampler node plugged into it, sampler info. So transmission weight, click on the checker button next to it, brings up create render. We go to Maya, utilities, it's alphabetical. Scroll down to the G's to gamma correct. Click on it, brings up our connection editor. On the left side is our gamma correct. We want to go out value X. We want to plug that into our material on the right under transmission. Hit close, life is good. All right, so now we want to set our gamma to 4 in X, 0 in Y and Z. So gamma 4X, whoops, 0 Y, 0 Z. Okay, in the gamma correction value, this is where we plug our sampler info node in. So render node, create render node, Maya, utilities, alphabetical, it's under S for sampler. Sampler info on the left, sampler info, the facing ratio of that sampler. We want to plug into the value in our gamma correct, and the X value is what we want. So now we get our shadow immediately. Hit close. So far, so good. Now, a couple other things to do. Let's get our color. So we can do our color exactly the same way we did for the wine. I'm going to double click on transmission color. Brings up my advanced color picker. Under color wheel, image, I want to click load. I want to load in, and I've got my reference image on the desktop here. So empty glass bottles. Yep, I like that. We're going for this kind of olivey color. So let's sample that area. So if I go too dark, way too dark, can't see through it. Let's go down here. And actually, that area gives me a pretty good sample, actually. Hit done. I'm going to go with that. That's actually not too bad. Yep, that actually is not bad at all. All right, so it looks really bright, really saturated here, but it's also pretty dark. It's got low value. All right, so we've done all this. Now we go under advanced in the material, turn on caustics, increase the indirect specular. So let's go down under advanced right here, turn on caustics, and increase our indirect specular to 1.1. There we go, just adds a little more brightness to it. Now, if you turn that on and it gets a little too bright, you can always dial the color down a little, like here, the value of it, just a little bit, make it just a touch darker, just so we're back to where we were here. All right, so let's go back to our checklist. So now, let's take a look at what we got going on here. So this is our area of interest where we have overlap. So we got 4 for the glass, 2 for the wine. We got 4 for the bottle. That makes a total of what? Remember, we're talking about the number of rays. Yep, Kayvon says 10. Yep. We got 4 for the bottle. We got 2 for the wine. So 4 plus 4 plus 2 is 10. So under transmission, Arnold renderer, sampling. You wanted to go down to default ray. Here, transmission, I want to set that to 10. Now, let me keep this image before I do any changes. So now I change this to 10. So 10 plus 4 plus 1 is 15. Let's see what that looks like. Little bit right here. It's going to be kind of hard to see. Let me make that, let's make that pink, that area. May not seem like a big deal, but right here, this area in particular, take a look at that. This is with the default transmission of 8, ray depth of 10. This is with transmission of 10, ray depth of 15. You got a little more transparency in there. Yep, you really kind of have to worry about that stuff. So now we can see through all surfaces, and we're actually seeing through a reflection is what that was right here. Now we can see through it. And it's also, it's a reflection of the bottle here on the side, because everything's kind of flipped when we do refraction. Javier says, in the interior scene, there's a picture frame. So when we change the material to glass, we need to do any of the shadow correction steps? Actually, Javier, that's a really good question. No. If you choose to do that as glass top in front of a picture, say for example, we're not going to do any photos or pictures or maps for this project, but you'd have a color or something in there. You would use the same process that we use for the windows, which we're going to demo next. Basically, they're going to be glass panes that you're not going to be able to see refraction. And also that glass, since it's laying right on the picture or photo, whatever it happens to be, okay, that's not going, you're not going to see any refraction there, and you're not going to see any shadows. That's why we're going to make it a glass pane, like window glass. All right. Makes sense? Any questions? So we got all the steps done. The only thing we need to do now. All right, so Javier is good. Anybody have any questions? Tyra's good, thank you. Michael's good, thank you. Javier's good. Kayvon. Yep, you'll get better doing it as you do it. It's going to take practice. It's like anything, like an instrument, musical instrument. You got to practice. You can't just pick it up and go, hey, I'm going to play. Nope. You got to learn all kinds of stuff. All right. So for the exterior, that's pretty much what you're going to need to do. Let's talk about the interior. Let's turn that off. Let's do that. Let's save this scene. And let's talk about the interior. So let me go make sure my interior is not a mess like my exterior was. Interior, here we go. Yeah, let's get rid of that. All right, so I got a daytime and nighttime. I'm going to do the day because there's a little more light in it, but the nighttime is exactly the same thing. Makes it a little easier to see in the day, but whichever scene you did, it works the same way. Daytime, nighttime, use your reference. All right, let's take a look at the requirements in FSO for it. All right, so for the interior, we've got glass windows. So we need to turn the visibility on in the display layer. And we might need to check the non-visible dome light, because if we leave the visibility for transmission on in it, when we make glass for the windows, we're not going to be able to see through it. So that'll be something we'll need to adjust. So the vase, which is above the TV on, they're like little shelves above the TV, that needs to be clear. The hourglass bottle, rectangle bottle, and Klein bottle. Hourglass bottle, rectangle bottle. Well, hourglass is above the TV. Rectangle bottle is next to the sofa on the table. Klein bottle is on the table. They need to be different colored glass bottles. We have a wine glass next to the sofa. That needs to be clear, and there is wine in the glass. So let's start with bringing our project in. So let me go back to Maya. Set my project. Interior. Let's open up the interior. I'm going to do the day, like I said. All right, I'm actually going to switch over to the long shot just because I want to show you where everything is. So I'm going to open up the outliner. And you can see there's a bottles group. So you got a rectangle bottle that's next to the sofa. It is visible. Hourglass, that's above the TV. Here's our vase right up there. And our Klein bottle is on the table. Now we also, let's go to perspective. Let's zoom in on the table here. So here is your wine glass. There's the wine inside the glass. Is that wine glass visible to the camera? Let's go to the long shot. And barely, you can see just a tiny bit of it. Right there. Right there. There is the wine glass. Ever so slightly visible, but still. Wood table. There we go. There's your large glass. Wine inside. Well, since it's inside the glass, that needs to be adjusted also. So there are your objects. Small, but they are still there. All right, so the windows. Windows are on a separate display layer. Window glass. Turn visibility on. I'm going to go to perspective. And let's kind of zoom outside. Going to go to shaded mode. So there are my windows. There's my window geometry. Can't see in. It's single-sided. Let's go to wireframe. It's there. So where is it inside? Now, easiest way to select all the glass for the windows is in the display layer, right-click, select objects. That will select the geometry for all of the windows. First thing you want to do, assign a new Arnold material. Shift-T, standard surface. This window panes. Actually, glass window panes is good. That way I know it's a glass material. Glass window panes. There we go. I'm going to do a save as. Save as. There we go. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to follow all the steps here, except we do not need the gamma correct or the sampler info because we're not worried about shadows in windows. We don't see shadows in windows. Even when light comes through, the only shadow we see is from the frame of the window or the walls that create that shadow when it blocks the light coming in from the outside. All right, so got my geometry selected, and remember, easiest way to select it, go into Channel Box Layer Editor, right-click on your layer, select the objects, assign your material to them, and you're good to go. Now, at this point, if I render out from my living room, let's do that. Let's do a quick render. Actually, let's do it from the render cam living room. There we go. So you can't see anything. Why is that? Because I'm blocking the dome lights and I'm blocking the sun. That means my window glass geometry is working. All right, so now we need to make glass. Like I said, we're going to do everything except the gamma correct part. So we find reference is always good. Let's go. Is that working? Still processing. Okay. So let's find, how about living room day? And let's look for some reference where we can see glass and we can see some reflections on it. Nope, not very good. Nope, that looks too artificial. Nope, no good. How about this one? I can't really see reflections. How about that one? You can kind of see them, but they're not that good. No, that looks too CG. Oh, it's not too bad. You can see a little bit of the reflections in there. The outside's blown out, kind of like what we have, so good enough. All right, we assigned our material. Let's turn off the base weight. So just going to render this, let it run while we're working. So base weight, as far as roughness goes, glass, windows, I'm going to give it a 0.05. Let's turn up the transmission. There we go. As soon as I turn up the transmission, make it transparent, we got light coming in. But notice we can't see our image outside the window. That's because we're using two dome lights. So as I mentioned in the milestone, the day scene, the non-visible dome light attributes, we need to turn the transmission visibility to 0. Because right now, it's not visible, but not visible to the camera. Right now, it's visible to the refractions. So let's go into the outliner, select our non-visible dome light, go under the attributes for it. Notice camera visibility is turned off. Let's turn transmission off. Now we can see our images. Now that dome light basically will allow me to see my glass. Right now, the one thing that's going on here is we got a lot of refraction going on. We're calculating refraction. We don't really need that. It is glass. Well, it's thin-walled glass, which means it's a flat plane. So window panes, Clear glass, leave the color, the transmission color at white. We want to go down under geometry and turn thin walled on. So that is in the material. Oh, we're in the dome light. Don't want that. So let me go back and grab my, let me select my glass panes. There we go, transmission, blah, 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 blah. Geometry. Let me save this. And let's turn on thin walled. Now, as soon as I do that, you can see how the image outside the window doesn't refract that much anymore. That's refracted quite a bit. We don't need to calculate refractions. We just want to see some reflections, which is what we're seeing now. All right, now let's go down. Do we need to turn caustics on? Let's find out. Let me use this window as the guinea pig here. So let me turn thin walled off. Wait, what are my render settings? Why is this taking forever? That's why. Eek. Okay, good job. That's why it was taking forever. Oh yeah, much better. All right, so this is what it looks like without thin walled. This is what it looks like with thin walled. Do we need caustics? Is it going to bring anything to the party, or is it just going to increase my render time and make me annoyed? Doesn't look like it's bringing anything to the party here. And also, it looks like I've got my denoiser on. Disable. Good. There we go. Okay, that's better. I don't care if it's got noise. I'm not seeing any benefit for me select the object. I'm not seeing any benefit for turning on caustics. I really don't notice any difference. So caustics are off. Let's turn them on. Yep, I'm not seeing any benefit. Turn that off. Do I need to turn on or turn up indirect specular? Let's go 1.1, which is what we do for glass. I notice any difference? Yeah, it's a little brighter with it on. So yeah, we need to do that, but we don't need caustics on. I mean, if you turn it on, nothing bad's going to happen, but you're going to increase the render time for no benefit. So honestly, I mean, you could put it on. So the only thing we didn't do was put in the gamma correct and sampler info. Everything else is pretty much the same. But we get reflections in our windows. So now we've got our scene, we've got glass for the windows, we've made them thin-walled, which stops the refraction process but gives us the reflectivity and the overall look of glass. All right, any questions for the windows? Jackson, you good? Okay. So follow the checklist. Like I said, you don't need the gamma correct or the sampler info for window panes. And I should note that down here. You know, thin walled, or I should say window panes, you need to turn on thin walled, but you don't need the gamma correct or sampler info. When I was trying to do partial renders to see what I was changing, my Maya would crash. Just wondering, anybody else have this issue? Javier, make sure that you turn your production settings down in Maya. Make sure that, well, like I did, mine was taking forever. So just reset your render settings to be the default so you get quick feedback. See if that helps. Also, make sure that you've got Arnold 4.2.2. Because some of the older versions, they did crash. Oh yeah, and make sure you didn't do what I did. I had my denoiser imager on, so just right click on it and disable it. I mean, you can do the same thing over here. That will enable. Don't need that on there. All right. So yeah, only save your denoiser for your final renders. Yeah, it's really hard to update with that denoiser on, and production render settings. As you saw, I was having trouble. My little computer was sitting here ready to fly away because the fan was running nonstop. All right, so we did the glass. Let's go and focus on the desk for now, because I want to show you. Well, we already know how to do clear glass. So the vase needs to be clear glass. Hourglass bottle, rectangle bottle, Klein bottle all need to be different colors. So let's go find a nice colored bottle for the Klein bottle. So let's find colored glass bottles inside. Oh. If I could spell inside, that would even be better. Again, tools, size, large. Okay, avoid stuff. I mean, this is all fine and well, but doesn't really give you a sense of environment. Again, avoid pixie bottles. You know, we're not making lights out of bottles. Avoid anything with color inside of it. These aren't bad. Looks like somebody put them in their garage or on the floor somewhere in the kitchen. Took a picture of them. I mean, they're not bad. You can find lots of old-timey bottles and kind of collage photos like that. Colored glass bottles. We want them to be empty. I probably could specify that. Again, magical matrix bottles, not happening. Besides, I want some other colors other than the traditional like liquor bottle colors. You know, you get green, you get olive, you get amber, you get clear, you get a tint of maybe blue in it or rose in the clear. Nah, we want to find actual bottles that have color dye inside the actual glass itself. Not painted, not done. All right. Let's go empty. Let's take the word color out. Empty glass bottles inside. All right, this isn't bad, but I don't know. Kind of reminds me of like in The Mandalorian or in Pirates of the Caribbean, where they hung all the dead pirates' heads as a warning to the other pirates to not come there. It's like warning bottles to not show up at your doorstep because their fate is going to be this. It's kind of creepy. Let's see. That's not too bad. That one's not bad. Oh, looks like you learn how to wash your bottles. Awesome. I need a tutorial for that. Okay, so we're coming up kind of dry here. This isn't bad, but again, it's magical white backgrounds. It's really terrible. Let's do old glass bottles. How about that? Ah, that one's not too bad. I mean, it is a white background, but you can clearly see there are shadows on it. This one's not too bad. This is definitely old soda bottles. So you got like a green tint, a blue tint, kind of an orangey color. That's got possibilities. It's pretty cool. So there's a good one you can find, yeah, but we need more than just a blue bottle, Michael. We need to have multiple colors because each of the glass, the hourglass, the rectangle bottle, and the Klein bottle need to be different colors. Oh, it has a rainbow set. Nice. All right, so let's go for blue glass bottles. I like Michael's idea. Blue glass. So we got this one that's outside. Okay, we're looking for the rainbow set. There's dead bottles on a stick. Yeah, that one's not bad. That one's actually pretty good. Is this the one you were talking about, Michael? That's kind of a nice rainbowy color there. All right, so we've also got some other types here. Ooh, this is pretty good. I like this. Genie bottles. All right, let's see. Bottle collection. Let's see if we can save this image. Desktop. Oh yeah, that'll work nicely. So these bottles have some roughness in them. Can't quite see through them all the way, so they have some personality. For this exercise, do not pick a bottle that is purely opaque. You can't see through it. We need to be able to see through it a little bit. So, yep, that will work. Let's do that. Let's close that reference. Let's go back here. And let's go to our close-up shot right here. And actually, let's just go perspective. Let's zoom in here and do this. All right, so first thing, we've got reference. We need to assign a new AI material to it. Shift T, Arnold shader, AI standard, Klein bottle. And let's just kick off a render. Let's do it from perspective. And let's just crop it. make it a little bigger. There we go. All right. Found reference, assigned it, base color, or sorry, base weight off. There we go. You know what? I'm going to leave the standard roughness because I'm looking at these bottles and they're pretty rough. All right. So base or specular color, specular weight stay at default. Weight's 1, color's white. Index of refraction, glass, perfect. Since it's a bottle, we need, or a bottle or a glass or something that casts a shadow, we need to do our gamma correct in the transmission. So let's turn the transmission up. No shadow. As soon as I turn that up, we lost our shadow. All right, so first thing we want to do, we're going to plug our gamma correct into the transmission weight. Click on the checker button, create render node, Maya, utility, G for gamma. Right there, gamma correct. Out value, we click on that. And transmission. So on the left side, gamma correct, out value X. On the right, material, transmission, close. This is where we adjust our gamma. In X, it goes to 4. In Y and Z, it goes to 0. Now, the value, this is where the magic happens. So gamma correct value, create render node, Maya utility, we go down to sampler info, we go facing ratio, under value, it's X. We hit close, now we got our shadow. Forgot to put my phone on mute. There we go. All right, so we got our shadow back. Transmission color. What color should we make the wine bottle? We got blue. Remember, we got to be able to see through it, so it can't be super dark. We got blues, we got greens, we got kind of yellowy oranges, and we got reds. See, we did greens before, so let's either do blues or, well, we did wine, so let's do blue, just to be different. All right, let's do kind of like either this one or that one. All right, so that's going to be transmission color. Let's go back to our Maya material. I'm going to double click and load my reference in. Let's load the new reference. No. Yes. So it's a little dark. Let's come over here. Now you can see I'm sampling a lighter color. And my saturation is down pretty low, but my value is pretty high. And that's making my glass really dark. So for a color like this, I like to try and keep my value at 1. All right, so that's what I'm going after. It looks like it's still got too much saturation in it. So let's dial that down a little. Let's go to 0.3. Honestly, for glass bottles, unless it's super dark glass, I usually like to keep the saturation somewhere between 0.2, 0.3. And again, it's going to depend on your bottle. All right, so here's my bottle that I'm going for. Could be still a little on the high side for saturation. Let's try 0.2. Oh, that's not bad. It looks a little low. Let's go 0.25. And honestly, it looks like I've got a little more roughness in my glass than I do here. You can see my nice glass shadow color. All right, so I'm done here. What I want to do is let's kind of drop the roughness down to 0.1. And I'm going to take my extra roughness and let's go 0.1 there also. Now, if it's still too rough, looking at that, yeah, it's not too bad. Now for this, it looks like I've got a little more yellow in my light than I do here. So let's see, where's that color at? Looks like it's going a little more towards green. Let's just bump it to the right a little. Put a little more red in that color because I got a lot of warm sunlight coming in. I don't know. All right. So looks like I've got that more or less done. Let's go do the checklist one more time. So for our glass, let's go turn on caustics and increase the indirect spec to 1.1. Add a little more sparkle to our glass. Now at this point, I may say, oh, well, now it's a little on the bright side. Maybe I need a little more value in the color. But actually, that still matches pretty well. So all that fogginess that we're seeing here in the glasses, that's all roughness. And remember, you want to kind of split it. Or not split it, but you want to apply the roughness in the specular and also the extra roughness in transmission for glass. And I think we're done with the checklist. So the only thing we need to check is the render settings. Down here, transmission set for 8, which works perfectly well. I might increase the specular to 2 or 4 like I did in the interior, just so I get some more bounces for the light. Bouncing around. Don't forget, I might need to bump that up. And of course, as soon as you start doing that, it's going to increase your render time a little. All right. So kind of makes sense. I mean, it's the same workflow that we did outside. The only difference is we're inside. Sometimes you need to kind of adjust the light a little bit for the warmth. Same thing happens outside. Questions? Michael's good. All right, Kayvon's good, Pal's good, Michael's good. Jackson, you good? Jackson's good. How about Nicholas? You got any questions? Will, Tyra, Lauren, Janelle, Katerina, everybody good? Tyra's good, thank you. Kayvon's good, Katerina's good. Blaine, any questions? Janelle's good. Excellent, Javier's good, thank you. All right, so let me save this out. It's not a final render, but what I want to do is I promised Michael, is Michael here? Michael, where are you? Yes. Michael asked about bringing in your renders and putting them into the layer. He was worried about how do you render black and white? Well, you don't render black and white. You render out in color and you put it in the proper Photoshop template. So let's do the close-up. Just do a quick render. Hopefully that won't take 6 years to do. It's going to be noisy, but at least I can get something out with color in it. There we go. So that's got color in it. And let's go file. Let's see, multi-layer EXR. And let's call it color render test. Save. There we go. Let's minimize that. Save our scene. Let's minimize. Let's quit out of here. Let's minimize that. Let's bring you over here. All right, Michael. So this hopefully will answer your question. Processing still. Wow. All right, so here is my EXR image. It's noisy, but it will work. My templates, don't forget we give you guys new templates. You want to make sure you pick the interior or exterior. So here's the interior. Let's open up Photoshop. What I'm going to do is take my bottle reference, throw that on the top, and then I'm going to take my render, put that on the bottom down here on the right side. So don't forget your long shot and the reference for the long shot is going to be in color. For the close-up, that's going to be black and white. So you need to find the right layer to put your black and white in. So it says put close-up shot, black and white reference here. It's also the render, where the render is going to go. All right. So first thing I'm going to do, let's open up my reference. It's on my desktop. Let's get those bottles. Yeah, they're pretty big, but I'll have to scale them. All right, select all, copy. Actually, let me crop it because I don't need the bottom. I only need the top part. So let's select all, copy. I'm going to close it, and I'm not going to save because I don't want to ruin my reference. But what I want to do is I'm going to select one of the objects in my black and white layer here and paste. Notice I pasted it, and it showed up black and white. So if I turn off this adjustment layer, it's in color. But that adjustment layer puts everything underneath of it. Notice it's got a little down arrow here in my adjustment layer. That adjustment layer pins it to the layer underneath, which is a group. Anything I put in that group is black and white. Now, if I move this out and put it in here, say, for example, I drop it in here, now it's in color, right? Because this is now my color. But I want it here. So it's black and white. Let's open my render. Well, first, let's do this. Let's get this. Let's scale it. Let's do this right. Photoshop. No, I don't want to go there. There we go. Jeez. All right, so let's shrink you, put you up here. Now let's go chase down our render. Which is right there. So EXR options, as alpha channel, click open. There's my color, select all, copy. I'm going to close it. I've got my layer selected inside my black and white group. I'm going to paste. That's going to drop it into this same group. So now I can pop that in. And if I want to bring that color in, I have to put it down in here. So let's paste. So now I've got a color version on the left and a black and white version on the right. All right, Michael, does that answer your question as far as how to bring in those images, put them on the right side, you drop them in the correct layer or the group for the layer, and they show up as black and white. For the other one, they're color.
Yes.
Good. So the exterior works exactly the same way. All right, awesome. Let me quit out of here because Photoshop is a hog. Don't save anything, Photoshop, please. There we go. All right, anybody have any questions about anything that we've gone over? So just make sure you get reference. Javier, I believe the window pane should help you with your picture frame. So there's your picture frame, image, matting. Actually, I don't think there is any glass on top of that, so you're not going to have to worry about it. There would be a separate piece of geometry for the glass, because that would be a flat piece that would go on top of it. Ah, one on the shelf. Okay. Are there any rules about the reference we use for glass? Yes, Kayvon. It's the same rules as the other reference. No magical white backgrounds. Make sure you have reference for everything you're doing. So you saw how I looked for reference for the wine glass, the wine in the glass, the wine bottle. You mean the bottle specifically? No, but you have to be able to see through the glass, just like the wine, for this exercise, because we want to make sure you know how to make glass that you can see through with a color in it. The level of roughness is going to be based on your reference. All right, so let's go back. We're looking on the shelf here. Let's go see what that looks like. Where's that at? There we go, picture shelf. So all we have is an image and the picture frame. So there's no geometry there. Javier said, so if we find a reference with two things that we like, can we use that image? Yes, just make sure that you label which you are using for which part. So if you find two bottles, two different colors, say, the blue one's the Klein bottle, The red one is the hourglass or whatever. You can find a whole living room of stuff that you mostly like, oh, I like the sofa, I like the chairs, I like the floors, I hate the walls, I hate the pillows. You find separate reference for those and label all the reference so we know which reference image goes with which geometry. Does that make sense? Okay, good. So for your picture on the shelf, there is no glass geometry, so it looks like you're off the hook for worrying about that. You have geometry for the picture itself, which in this case is going to be a color since we're not adding maps in. Just give it a color. So if you've got an image with a blue sky and it's mostly blue, make the image, make the color of the image geometry blue to match your reference. Remember, we're just kind of averaging the color out. So for example, the table here, I think I showed you guys my reference the other day. Where's it at? Project 6 reference. So here, I like this table. That's what I want to use here. It's got grain in it. I'm just going to choose the average color, which for the most part is going to be the part with the lighter wood and not the actual grain inside of it. In fact, an image like this, when I'm working, I will usually go into the preview tool, just go to tools, adjust color. And usually what I'll do is turn saturation all the way down. So now I'm looking at it and I'm going, oh, okay, this is the level of reflectivity I want. I'm not distracted by color. So that's usually what I do when I'm working with something like this. If I'm having trouble just kind of nailing down the reflectivity, open it up in preview, turn that saturation down, just don't save it. When you close it and just reset it. But that will give you, a good way to work without taking a lot of time to go into Photoshop and making 2 sets of images. Again, just go to color or tools, adjust color, turn your saturation down. Before you close it, just reset it so it goes back. Because preview has a way of saving your stuff even when you don't want it to be saved. All right, can I answer any questions? Anybody have any questions? Yeah, go ahead, Jackson.
So if you look at the 6.1 practice on FSO, you have previous student submissions.
6.1 practice. Yep, go ahead.
At the bottom of the student submissions, there are no candles in the outside.
Because it's a day scene. Remember, there's a separate scene file for night, and you'll need to find reference for the candles. So they did the exterior day, interior night.
Yeah, I have that exterior night, so I was looking at them like, where are the candles?
Yeah, no, and I usually rotate the reference images every couple months in here just so people get a different point of view. It's really hard to fit all the reference sets in here with examples. Okay, but yeah, as long as you understand, you still need to find candle reference at night, and they're LED candles, so ignore any candles with flames in them because they're not going to give you the right kind of look. And really, we're just interested in, for the reference for them, the base of the candle, is it going to be like brass or bronze or plastic? Is the stem of the candle, the stick, that's probably going to be plastic if it's a LED candle. So what color is it? And then, of course, the flame is already a light, so you don't have to worry about that. Actually, that's a good question. I'm glad you asked that. So yeah, the exterior night is the only one with a different scene file because, again, different composition, different geometry.
And we don't, I know you didn't go over this, so I'm guessing we don't have to, but we don't add materials to mesh lights.
No, because if you select the mesh light and add a material to it, you're going to override the light. Yes. So make sure when you're assigning materials, do not assign a material to your mesh light. The mesh light will be overridden and, you know, it's a bulb. Think of it like a light bulb. You don't put a material on a light bulb. You know, you can paint it, but that's a whole different animal. We're not getting into that. All right, excellent question. Any others? I accidentally used my night Zen garden for my day scene, so just move outside the shot for last week. Do I have to do it again with the day file? So Bao, which are you doing, the Zen garden day or night? So you did the Zen garden day, so that means you're doing the interior night, right? But you use the Zen garden night file during the day. You will need to use the correct scene file. So what you can do, Bao, is, you know how you can select objects in Maya and export? You can select your dome light and you can select, well, you can select your dome light and the sun and import them into your day scene. And you can also do the same thing with the, well, no, about, you don't want to move the candles out because the composition is different, because all the geometry is rearranged on the table to accommodate 4 candles. So it's actually a separate scene. So here's what you could do. You could go in, and let me save this for now. Let me set my project for the day. Actually, project set. Let's go Zen Garden. Set. Let's open. All right, so you accidentally did the night. Right, so you know everything's the same in the Zen Garden except for the table setting. So what you could do here is go in and turn off the table setting here. You could go into the day scene. Table setting, select objects. You could export the table setting here, import it into your other Zen Garden scene, and then you'll have a separate table setting without the candles and in the right composition. And then you won't have to redo your lighting or redo your materials. Does that make sense? Okay, good. That's probably the easiest way out. Michael said, so for the bread, do we make a bump and plug it in? No. Bump map, spec map, roughness map, color map are textures. We do not do those until project 7, which we'll get to on Friday. So basically, don't make more work for yourself, Michael. Not yet, anyway. Does that make sense? Where did you read in the doc that you will? You're talking about the look development? Yeah, that's because the look development, wait a minute, what? The link has been disabled? What? Okay. Well. All right, I'm going to have to research that, find out why our doc links aren't working. Okay. Yep, that's all brand new to me. Last time I checked, they were working. So yeah, I'll see if we make sure we can get that working for everybody. All right, any other questions? All right, Michael's good. Kayvon's good. All right, so let's go to lunch and come back at, ooh, let's go 11:35. Let me grab everything out. Hopefully it's not a big deal to troubleshoot that link because our docs should work. All right, so yeah, let's make it 10:35. We'll go to lunch, come back at 11:35. All right, so just a reminder, have a good lunch, everybody. I will be off tomorrow. I'll check in with you guys at the beginning of lab here. And hopefully I can get some troubleshooting in and find out why the links aren't working. All right, so I'll see you guys on Friday. If I don't see you at the beginning of lab, have a good lunch.